Imagine the sharpest knife you've ever seen. Now picture it twisting inside your kidney. That's how people describe the agony of a kidney stone. The truth is, it's one of the most excruciating pains a human being can experience, and yet millions of people are silently setting themselves up for it every single day without even knowing. Most of us believe the solution is simple. Just drink more water. I used to think that too. But what if I told you that water alone won't save you? What if the real key to never getting a kidney stone has nothing to do with how much you drink, and everything to do with something you've probably ignored your entire life? This is where things get shocking, because the most important protector against kidney stones isn't what most doctors emphasize. It's not cutting out spinach or chocolate. It's not drowning yourself in lemon water. It's a hidden mineral one, so powerful it can stop stones from ever forming, yet so overlooked that almost everyone is deficient in it. Welcome to the Nutrition Institute. In this video, I'm going to expose the real secret to never suffering through kidney stones again. Stay tuned, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button to support the channel and fuel more life-changing videos like this one. There are certain moments in life when pain is so overwhelming, it leaves a permanent scar on your memory. For some, it might be a broken bone. For others, a traumatic accident. But for those who have lived through it, the pain of a kidney stone is described as something on a whole other level. Imagine a blade twisting inside your body, cutting from the inside out. Imagine being rushed to the hospital in the middle of the night, doubled over, unable to breathe through the intensity. Some people say they would rather go through childbirth again than experience another kidney stone. That's how severe it can be. When I first heard stories like this, I brushed them off as exaggerations. Surely it couldn't be that bad. But the more I listened, the more I realized these weren't dramatizations. They were raw accounts of what kidney stones actually feel like. And that's when I began to wonder, if something this excruciating can happen so suddenly, how many of us are unknowingly heading straight toward it? Most people, including myself for a long time, believe the solution is obvious. You just drink more water, right? Hydrate properly, and the problem disappears. That's what every article, every health website, and even many doctors will tell you. It's the go to advice. 2.5 liters a day and you're safe. It sounds simple enough. But then comes the shocking reality. People who follow this advice still end up in the emergency room, screaming in pain, passing stones the size of tiny pebbles with edges sharp enough to tear tissue. Drinking water alone doesn't guarantee anything. And that realization hit me like a thunderbolt. If water isn't the ultimate solution, then what is? That's where the story starts to take a twist, because when you dig deeper, you discover that the cause of kidney stones isn't just about hydration or even about what foods you eat. There's something more hidden at play, something far less talked about, but infinitely more important. Let me step back for a second. Kidney stones form when substances like calcium and oxalate, or sometimes uric acid, clump together in your kidneys. Under normal circumstances, your body has ways of keeping these substances dissolved and harmless, but under the wrong conditions, they crystallize, they grow, and before you know it, you have a stone small in size, but massive in the destruction it causes. The classic advice of drinking water helps dilute these substances, so they're less likely to crystallize. But here's the catch. Even with enough water, some people's bodies are still primed for stones. That means there's something else we need to be looking at. This is where my perspective completely flipped. For years, I thought avoiding spinach, almonds, and chocolate was the key. These foods are high in oxalates, and oxalates are a big part of stone formation, so it made sense to cut them out. But then I stumbled upon a fascinating paradox. The very foods that are high in oxalates are also high in something else something that can neutralize those oxalates before they ever become a problem. And that something is magnesium. Think about that for a moment. We've been told for decades to fear oxalates, to fear spinach and nuts, to fear chocolate. But nature, in its brilliance, packaged oxalates with their own antidote. Magnesium has the remarkable ability to bind with oxalates and keep them from pairing up with calcium in the kidney. Without magnesium, oxalates run wild, teaming up with calcium and forming sharp, jagged stones. With magnesium, it's a completely different story. Suddenly, the risk plummets. The oxalates are tamed. And yet, here's the tragedy. Almost everyone is deficient in magnesium. Modern diets are stripped of it. Processed foods contain little to none. Stress, alcohol, certain medications, and even water treated with fluoride all chip away at the body's magnesium reserves. We live in a world where magnesium deficiency is the rule, not the exception, and that deficiency sets the stage for stones, no matter how much water you drink. This is where the reversal of thinking really struck me. For years, people have obsessed over hydration. They've measured their water bottles, forced down glass after glass, and still ended up in agony. Meanwhile, the true guardian of the kidney's magnesium has been almost entirely overlooked. It's like locking your front door every night, but leaving your windows wide open. You feel safe, but the intruder still finds a way in. What makes magnesium even more fascinating is how deeply it ties into the rest of the body. It doesn't just protect against kidney stones. It regulates calcium across the board. Without it, calcium doesn't make it to where it belongs, the bones and teeth. Instead, it floats in the bloodstream, depositing in arteries, joints, and yes, the kidneys. It's why people can take high doses of vitamin D and still end up with stones. Vitamin D helps absorb calcium, but without magnesium as its partner, that calcium goes rogue. It's the perfect storm for stone formation. So here I was sitting with this new knowledge, realizing that everything I thought I knew about kidney stones was incomplete. Water matters, yes. Diet matters too, but the missing piece, the piece almost no one talks about, is magnesium. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. It explains why some people, no matter how carefully they avoid spinach or how much water they drink, still get stones. It explains why others who eat a diet full of so-called danger foods never experience a single episode. It's not just about oxalates or hydration. It's about balance. It's about having enough of the mineral that keeps everything in check. That realization left me both stunned and oddly hopeful, because unlike some complex medical interventions, magnesium is simple. It's available. It's something we can all adjust in our lives. Starting today, the real tragedy isn't that kidney stones exist. It's that so many could be prevented if people simply understood the role of magnesium. And this, to me, is the most shocking truth of all. We're so focused on the obvious solutions that we've missed the critical one hiding in plain sight. That's why, when people tell me about their struggles with kidney stones, I don't just nod and say, drink more water. I tell them the truth, that without magnesium, all the water in the world won't protect you. And once you understand that, you'll never look at this problem the same way again. The first time I truly pictured what a kidney stone does to the human body, I was shaken. I imagined something as small as a grain of sand carving its way through the urinary tract. But instead of being smooth, it had jagged edges like broken glass. That image stuck in my mind. Suddenly, I understood why people describe it as one of the most painful experiences of their lives. It's not just a stone. It's a razor traveling through delicate tissue, leaving blood and agony behind. What unsettled me even more was realizing how silent the buildup can be. Most people don't know they're at risk until it's too late. You don't feel the calcium and oxalates slowly bonding inside your kidneys. You don't notice the imbalance quietly forming. And then one day, it all comes crashing down in the form of unbearable pain. That invisibility is part of what makes kidney stones so dangerous. When I began to learn more, I noticed how often the same advice kept popping up. Drink more fluids, avoid oxalates, alkalize the urine. On the surface, it sounds logical. If the stones are made from calcium and oxalates, then don't eat oxalates. If the urine is too concentrated, then drink water. But the more I looked into it, the more I realized this advice was only scratching the surface. It treated the symptoms of the problem, not the root. And in some cases, it even confused people more. Take oxalates, for example. Spinach, almonds, and chocolate are often demonized because they contain high amounts of oxalates. Patients are handed brochures telling them to avoid these foods as if they were toxic. But here's the twist. Those same foods are also rich in magnesium, and magnesium, as I came to understand, is not the villain, it's the hero. It binds with oxalates in the digestive tract, preventing them from ever reaching the kidneys to cause harm. Nature, in its wisdom, placed the antidote inside the same package as the supposed poison. To me, that revelation was mind-blowing. How many people had cut these foods from their lives out of fear while missing the very nutrient that could have saved them? The story becomes even more intriguing when you consider vitamin D. It's known for helping us absorb calcium. Without it, bones become weak and brittle. But here's the hidden danger. When vitamin D is taken in high doses without magnesium, the calcium it helps absorb doesn't make it into the bones or teeth. Instead, it lingers in the bloodstream, drifting into places it doesn't belong, like the kidneys. Suddenly, a nutrient meant to strengthen your body can become part of the very process that tears it apart. That paradox fascinated me, but it also worried me. How many people were unknowingly harming themselves by focusing on vitamin D alone without understanding the partnership it needs with magnesium? I found myself thinking about the body as a symphony. Every instrument has its part, and when they're in harmony, the music is beautiful. But if one instrument plays too loudly or another is missing entirely, the whole performance falls apart. In this analogy, magnesium is like the quiet conductor that keeps the rhythm. You don't always notice it when it's present, but you immediately feel the chaos when it's gone. Without it, calcium misbehaves. Without it, vitamin D's song turns dissonant. Without it, the body spirals into imbalance that can end in pain, hospitalization, and in some cases, long-term damage. I also couldn't ignore how modern life almost seems designed to deplete magnesium. Processed foods strip it away. Stress burns through it. Medications drain it. Even our drinking water, softened or treated with fluoride, robs us of it. It's no wonder deficiency is so widespread. And when deficiency is the norm, kidney stones aren't just a possibility, they become almost inevitable. As I absorbed all this information, I started to reflect on how health advice is usually delivered. It's often packaged as quick tips: drink more water, eat less spinach, take vitamin D. But real health doesn't come from shortcuts. It comes from understanding the deeper relationships inside the body. Magnesium isn't just another nutrient you check off a list. It's the key that makes the other advice actually work. Without it, you can follow every guideline perfectly and still end up in the doubled over in pain. With it, the odds shift dramatically in your favor. The irony is that most people don't even know they're deficient. They might chalk up their fatigue to a busy schedule, their muscle cramps to aging, their anxiety to stress. Few realize that these could all be whispers of the same thing: a body crying out for magnesium. And if those whispers go unanswered, they can grow into shouts in the form of kidney stones. I think about the people I know who have suffered through stones. Some of them never saw it coming. They didn't drink soda. They weren't big on junk food. They exercised regularly. By most standards, they were healthy, and yet the stones still came. The missing link was magnesium. Once you see that pattern, it's impossible to unsee. What I love about this discovery is that it gives us back a sense of control. Kidney stones can feel like cruel random punishments, but they don't have to be. By paying attention to magnesium, by restoring what modern life has taken away, we can change the story. We can protect ourselves before the pain begins. We can stop treating water as the sole shield and instead build a stronger defense from the inside out. The more I think about it, the more I realize this is bigger than kidney stones. It's about how we approach health in general. Do we accept surface level answers, or do we dig deeper? Do we chase fads, or do we seek balance? The lesson of magnesium is that sometimes the smallest elements make the biggest difference. Ignoring them doesn't just leave us vulnerable. It opens the door to suffering we could have avoided. Kidney stones are brutal, no question. But perhaps the greater tragedy is how preventable many of them are. We don't need to live in fear of them. We don't need to surrender to chance. With the right knowledge and the right minerals, we can rewrite the ending. That realization has changed how I see not only kidney stones, but my entire relationship with health. It has reminded me that true well-being isn't about chasing extremes. It's about respecting the quiet, often invisible forces that keep the body in harmony. And in that harmony, magnesium plays the lead role. Without it, the music collapses. With it, the body finds its rhythm again. That's the perspective I wish more people had. Because once you understand this, you'll never look at kidney stones or your health the same way again. When I think about prevention, I often picture it like building a shield around the body. Most of us spend our time repairing damage after it happens, waiting until pain forces us into action. But what if the shield could be built long before the attack ever comes? That's what learning about kidney stones and magnesium has taught me. It's not about waiting for the agony to strike. It's about preparing the body so the agony never comes. Once I understood magnesium's role, I wanted to know what practical steps I could take to strengthen that shield. The first was supplementation. Magnesium glycinate quickly stood out to me, not only because it provides a reliable form of magnesium, but also because the glycine attached to it carries its own benefits. It helps with sleep. It supports the body's natural antioxidant defenses, and it's gentle on the stomach. Taking 300 to 400 milligrams daily felt less like a pill and more like an act of insurance, a small daily choice that could protect me from a massive storm later. But I didn't stop there. I began experimenting with adding lemon juice to mineral water, creating a daily ritual that felt refreshing while also supporting my kidneys. The citrate in lemon helps keep calcium dissolved, reducing the chance of stones forming. The mineral water, unlike filtered or softened water, still contains magnesium and other essential minerals. It was such a simple habit, yet it carried profound implications. Every sip felt like a reminder that prevention doesn't have to be complicated. It can be woven into everyday life. Then came food. For years, I had heard the warnings: avoid spinach, cut out almonds, skip the chocolate. But now I saw those foods differently. Yes, they contain oxalates, but they also carry the very mineral that neutralizes oxalates. Instead of eliminating them, I focused on balance. I paired oxalate-rich foods with magnesium-rich ones. I added pumpkin seeds to my diet, ate avocados more often, and embraced leafy greens as allies instead of enemies. The goal wasn't to live in fear of food. It was to understand food better, to see how nature designed certain elements to work together. I also began cutting back on the things that work against me. Cola, with its phosphoric acid, was no longer just a guilty pleasure. It was a threat to my kidneys. Highly processed foods, loaded with chemicals and stripped of nutrients, became less appealing once I understood how they disrupted balance. Even high fructose corn syrup, hidden in so many packaged items, revealed itself as more than just a sweetener. It was a risk factor. Reducing these wasn't about discipline for the sake of discipline. It was about respect. Respect for my body. Respect for the balance it needs to function. There were subtler changes, too. I paid attention to stress, realizing how much it depletes magnesium reserves. I noticed how long days of over-exercising or frequent sauna sessions left me drained, not just in energy, but in minerals. I became more mindful of medications, understanding that some, like diuretics or certain antibiotics, could lower magnesium levels. These weren't reasons to stop exercising or to avoid necessary treatment. They were reminders to replenish what life takes away. The more I connected these dots, the clearer the bigger picture became. Kidney stone prevention isn't a single rule or one size fits all guideline. It's a lifestyle of awareness. It's understanding that hydration, diet, stress, sleep, and supplementation all weave together into a fabric of protection. And at the core of that fabric, holding it together, is magnesium. But here's the part that excites me most: the ripple effect. When you protect yourself from kidney stones, you're not just guarding against one painful condition, you're strengthening the body in ways that impact everything else. Magnesium helps regulate blood pressure. It calms the nervous system. It supports energy production at the cellular level. It reduces the risk of heart problems. It guides calcium into the bones, protecting against osteoporosis. In other words, focusing on magnesium isn't only about avoiding a kidney stone. It's about unlocking a cascade of benefits that touch nearly every part of health. That realization changed the way I saw prevention altogether. Too often, health advice feels like restriction. Don't eat this. Don't drink that. Avoid, avoid, avoid. But magnesium flips the script. It's not about fear. It's about empowerment. It's about adding something back into your life, something that makes you stronger, calmer, more resilient. Instead of constantly fighting against what's bad, you're building up what's good. And that shift in mindset makes the journey sustainable. I also began to think about how many people could be spared suffering if this knowledge were more widely shared. How many visits could be avoided? How many sleepless nights of pain? How many surgeries? How many bills? How many tears? The silence around magnesium feels almost criminal when you consider the stakes. It's not an exotic compound that requires advanced technology. It's not a miracle drug with side effects worse than the condition it treats. It's a simple, natural mineral one that our ancestors used to get plenty of from the soil and water, but one that modern life has stripped away. That's what makes this story bittersweet. On one hand, it's tragic that so many are suffering unnecessarily. On the other, it's hopeful because the solution is within reach. We don't need to reinvent medicine or discover a new therapy. We just need to reconnect with what our bodies were designed to use all along. For me, that's where the journey has led. Not to extremes, not to endless rules, but to balance, to listening to my body and giving it the nutrients it's been quietly craving, to embracing food not as enemy, but as medicine, to seeing water not as a magic bullet, but as part of a bigger picture, and most of all, to valuing magnesium as the unsung hero it truly is. Kidney stones may always exist, Some people may still experience them no matter what they do, but I believe the vast majority of cases could be prevented if we understood this one truth. The body doesn't just need hydration, it needs harmony, and magnesium is the cornerstone of that harmony. When I look back now, I no longer see kidney stones only as a medical condition. I see them as a message, a wake-up call from the body, a reminder that small imbalances can grow into big problems if left unchecked, and a reminder that sometimes the answers aren't hiding in new discoveries, but in old truths we've forgotten. Magnesium is one of those truths, and the sooner we embrace it, the fewer of us will ever have to face that knife, twisting pain inside our kidneys. When I step back and reflect on everything I've learned about kidney stones, one thought keeps coming back to me: how fragile balance really is. Something as small as a missing mineral, something you can't see or feel in your day. 2. Day life can spiral into one of the most excruciating pains a human being can endure. That's a humbling thought. It reminds me that health isn't built on a single habit or a single nutrient, but on the harmony of many small, often invisible choices. For years, I believed the narrative that water was the answer. I watched friends carry around gallon jugs, convinced they were safe as long as they kept drinking. But then I saw the reality. Even those who followed that advice to the letter still ended up in the emergency room. That was my wake-up call. Water is important, yes. But without magnesium, without the quiet conductor keeping calcium and oxalates in check, the whole system falls apart. To me, magnesium is more than a nutrient now. It's a symbol of how easily we overlook the essentials. We chase after complicated solutions, new diets, new supplements, when often the most powerful answers are the simplest. Magnesium doesn't just prevent kidney stones. It protects the heart, strengthens the bones, calms the nerves, fuels the cells. It reminds me that when we respect the basics, the body rewards us in ways that ripple far beyond a single condition. The biggest lesson I take from all this is that prevention is not about fear. It's not about cutting out every food you enjoy or living in constant worry about what might go wrong. Prevention is about empowerment. It's about understanding your body well enough to give it what it truly needs, to build the shield before the storm. For me, that means prioritizing magnesium, drinking mineral, rich water, embracing real food, and reducing the things that strip health away. It's not restrictive, it's freeing. It allows me to live with confidence instead of fear. So here's the thought I want to leave with you. If a single mineral can make this much difference, what other overlooked essentials might be quietly shaping your health right now? How many other problems in our lives are not about adding more complexity, but about restoring balance to the basics? That's a question worth pondering, not just for kidney stones, but for health as a whole. Now I'd love to hear from you. Have you or someone you know ever experienced kidney stones? Or maybe you've noticed signs of magnesium deficiency in your own life: fatigue, cramps, stress that won't let up. Share your perspective in the comments below. Your story could help someone else see the connection they've been missing. And if you found value in this video, please subscribe to the Nutrition Institute. Your support helps us create more content that empowers, informs, and makes health simple again. Together, we can spread the word and maybe save someone from ever experiencing that knife, twisting pain